Cairo 7 News at 5 o'clock starts right now.
Tonight, the first stage of justice for the man police say opened fire at a shopping mall.
Cascade Mall, Burlington units. Male ran into the women's Macy with a long rifle.
His family heartbroken.
Arjan has had mental health issues.
And a community refuses to let the tragedy tear them apart.
Crazy will win if I don't come back to this mall. So I will come back.
And good evening. I'm Steve Raible, live at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. On Friday night, it was the scene of a devastating shooting inside the Macy's department store. 2 hours from now, it will be a place of remembrance and reflection to honor the 5 people who were killed that night. All weekend long, members of this community paid their respects to the 4 women and 1 man who were killed. We'll be hearing their remarkable stories over the next hour. We also have a lot to tell you about the suspect, 20-year-old Arjan Satine. He faced a judge for the first time today on 5 counts of murder in the first degree. His bail was set at $2 million. We have live team coverage spanning across the North Sound. Let's begin with Cairo 7's Allison Grandy. She's live outside the Skagit County Jail where the suspect is locked up right now. Allison?
Steve, Satine is charged, like you said, with 5 counts of first-degree murder. Now, the prosecutor here told me that was the fastest way to get Satine behind bars and locked up. So he was charged in district court. That gives investigators up to 30 more days to investigate. 20-year-old Arjan Satine walked into court dressed in a blue shirt and wearing shackles. Shackles the judge ordered us not to show.
And sir, is your true name Arjan Chatton?
Yes, Your Honor.
Satine's mom and stepdad sat in the courtroom visibly upset. At one point, they were comforted by Burlington's mayor. The rest of the courtroom was packed with relatives of the victims. Some stood just feet from the suspect. Satine is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder.
Mr. Chatton, do you understand the charges?
Yes, Your Honor.
His bail was set at $2 million. Outside, Satine's stepdad had his arm around his wife.
We are torn up. We're hurt.
He was asked if there was any sign before the shooting.
Arjan has had mental health issues that we have been trying to work on with him. That's all I can say.
Court documents obtained by Cairo 7 show Satine admitted to police he was the one pictured in the surveillance video and that he shot all 5 victims. Detectives talked to his parents during the manhunt. They confirmed his identity, and his dad told investigators his Ruger 1022 was missing. It matched the rifle recovered from the counter at Macy's. Nelma McMullen used to be married to Satine's stepdad. She sat with his mom today.
She don't know what to do. She's very emotional right now.
Friends of the youngest victim left school to be in court.
Want to come down here and support the victims, and mostly Sarai.
So the prosecutor told me he has up to 30 days to file charges in Superior Court. I asked him if he's going to file aggravated murder charges. Those could come with the possibility of the death penalty if convicted. He told me he's just not ready to talk about any of that at this point. Live in Mount Vernon, Allison Grandy, Cairo 7 News.
Still so early in the investigation. Allison, thanks. Police were quick to release surveillance pictures of the suspect from the Macy's behind me the same night of the shooting. And they relied on tips from the public, hoping someone would recognize it. And many did, including one man who our Joanna Small spoke with this afternoon. She's live now in Oak Harbor near Naval Air Station Whidbey. Joanna, this man recognized Satine as someone who worked out at the gym on base.
He did, Stephen. Just to put that in perspective, there are so many people on Whidbey Island that use the base facilities, from the service members themselves to veterans to family members of those service members. So for someone to remember seeing someone specific at one of those base facilities is both remarkable and incredibly fortunate.
Saturday, Mike Wilson lifted a much heavier weight off his shoulders.
You know, I'm just doing what anybody else I hope would do.
Wilson, who is based at Naval Air Station Whidbey in Oak Harbor, says when he saw this blurry picture of the Cascade Mall shooter while scrolling through his Facebook feed.
And I was like, man, that looked just like this guy that went to the base gym. Didn't know his name until later on that day. And I was like, nah, no way. You know, no way that can be him.
But when Wilson saw more pictures of the suspect mid-stride.
Because he kind of walked like this and kind of like on his toes and stuff like that. And I was like, man, that looked just like the guy.
That's when Wilson decided to follow his gut. He told NAS base security, then talked with a few friends at the gym.
I'm like, is it him? And he was like, man, I think it is. And I was like, okay, I just want to make sure I'm not being paranoid or crazy.
Wilson called Homeland Security. We saw that same distinctive stride as Arjan Satine was taken into custody. It turns out Satine is a dependent of a Navy veteran, his stepfather. He used the base facilities and briefly worked as a bagger at the commissary while he was in high school. Wilson still can't believe it, but he's grateful he made the connection. He says if he'd ignored his instincts and there had been more carnage, he couldn't bear that weight.
My wife and my kids go to that, to that mall often. They go to the Chuck E. Cheese up there and stuff like that. So it could have been my family.
Now, Satine is only 20 years old, so his employment history is relatively brief. But we do have some more information about what he did here on base, and we'll be sharing that with you in about a half hour. But for now, live in Oak Harbor, Joanna Small, Cairo 7 News.
All right, Joanna, thank you. Here at Cascade Mall, friends and family will gather for a vigil to honor the victims tonight at 7 o'clock. Cairo 7's Deborah Horn is live at Mount Vernon High School, where students showed their support for their classmate who died. Debbie?
Steve, as you might guess, the mood, we are told, here at Mount Vernon High School was somber all day as they adjust to life without their classmate. They stood in one long embrace, dressed in purple and pink. These grieving classmates of 16-year-old Sarai Lara, a sophomore at Mount Vernon High School, who was shot dead as she shopped Friday night in Macy's.
Today was like one of the most shocking experience.
That is how Daniel Cruz Guzman describes the first day of classes since Lara and 4 others were killed at the Cascade Mall. It was, he said, a difficult day, especially for Lara's closest friends.
I was putting myself in her friends' positions because, I've lost a couple people too, and I could relate to what they're feeling.
Before classes started, he shot this video of the entire school forming a circle of silence in her honor. It was, they said, a remarkable sight.
There was a lot of emotions running high over there with their friends, and it was heartbreaking to see her friends cry and friends that I knew that lost a great person.
Lara was the youngest victim. Also killed was longtime Boeing maintenance worker Chuck Egan. The oldest victim was 95-year-old Beatrice Dotson, killed along with her 64-year-old daughter, Belinda Galdi, a longtime Snohomish County probation officer. Galdi is remembered fondly by at least one of her parolees. You look forward to seeing your probation officer?
That day when I went in there, it was kind of cool. I wasn't stressing on it because we were cool. She was really nice.
Counselors were available for those who needed to talk about this tragedy here at Mount Vernon High School, as well as in the Conway School District, because Sarai Lara was a student there until 8th grade. A very sad day all around. Reporting live in Mount Vernon, Deborah Horn, Cairo 7 News.
All of them now bound by tragedy. Debbie, thanks. Cascade Mall reopened today to shoppers, but the Macy's department store will remain closed until further notice. The retailer lowered the security gates inside the mall. Macy's says this location will reopen later this week. Back out here outside the mall, we have seen people stopping by this memorial all day long, grieving, leaving notes of condolences, flowers. There are a few teddy bears and balloons as well. And I must tell you that we have been stopped by more than just a few people to say thank you for bringing the story of Burlington strong to the rest of the area. They want everyone to know this has been difficult. They will get through it. The memorial here just continues to get bigger. We expect it to continue to grow in about 2 hours when a candlelight vigil will be held here. As reported earlier, a judge sets Satine's bail at $2 million, but many are wondering why bail would even be set in a case like this. Cairo 7's Allison Grandy spoke to prosecutors about that and is putting the story together for us tonight at 5:30. That and much more ahead in a little less than a half hour, but right now let's head back to Monique Minglavin and Kel Remaker in the Cairo 7 studios.
Yeah.
You're watching Cairo 7 News.
$2 million bail for the man police say pulled the trigger, killing 5 people at a Burlington shopping mall. 20-year-old Arjan Satine faced a judge for the first time today, but he could get out of jail if he can come up with the money. Those who lost their lives range in age from a teenager to a woman in her 90s. They were daughters, mothers, and spouses ripped from their families and friends. And 90 minutes from now, community members are coming together to remember those they lost in the shooting. A candlelight vigil will begin at 7 o'clock tonight. Hello again, I'm Steve Raible at the Cascade Mall in Burlington, where this tragedy happened Friday night. The mall reopened this morning, and people have been coming by all day long, dropping off flowers and cards at this growing memorial. We have team coverage tonight with our crews all over the North Sound. But let's begin with Cairo 7's Allison Grandy, who is live outside the Skagit County Jail in Mount Vernon. Allison, a judge set the suspect's bail at $2 million. Now, a lot of people want to know why bail would even be set in this kind of case.
Steve, I wanted to know too, so I went straight to the prosecutor. He told me it is not an option to withhold bail in district court. The only time they can withhold bail is in superior court for an aggravated murder case. Now, those are the same cases when they're able to seek the death penalty if they want to. Now, this morning, Arjan Satine appeared in district court here in the jail, accused of 5 counts of first-degree murder. The prosecutor told me that filing in district court gives detectives 30 more days to investigate without it counting towards the defendant's right for a speedy trial. The Skagit County prosecutor wouldn't discuss motive, and he didn't want to react to the details of the case.
I don't have a reaction because we're waiting for the information to come in before we make any decisions on what we're going to do or how we're going to approach the case.
Now, Satine's mom and stepdad were in court along with many relatives of the victims. The mayor of Burlington was there to support all of them. The prosecutor was asked if this could become a death penalty case. In other words, will Satine be charged with aggravated murder when the time comes to charge him in superior court? Now, he wasn't ready to answer that question, but from when I covered the Carnation murder trials, both of them started as death penalty cases, and you need aggravating factors. In this case, there were multiple victims. That's an aggravating factor, so prosecutors could decide to charge Satine with aggravated murder, and then they'll have a decision whether or not to seek the death penalty. We're just going to have to wait to see what happens when these charges are filed next in Superior Court. Live in Mount Vernon, Allison Grandy, Cairo 7 News.
All right, Allison, thanks very much. The pain this community feels tonight is palpable throughout the nation. Congressman Rick Larson took a moment to honor the shooting on the floor of the House of Representatives today.
I offer condolences to the community of Burlington, Washington, which is undoubtedly struggling to make sense of this senseless gun violence that was brought to their doorstep.
Congressman Larson took a moment to honor each person who was killed, sent condolences to their families, and thanked the law enforcement officials who worked tirelessly on the investigation that led to the arrest of the suspected shooter within 24 hours of the shooting. Now, when the mall doors reopened this morning, there was more security roaming throughout the parking lot, but what was really noticeable was the number of people who stopped by to pay their respects. Cairo 7's Petrania Poonswan spoke to a woman who was at the mall just before the shooting and lost a good friend that night.
As Cascade Mall reopened for business Monday morning, we saw security vehicles roaming the property. People returned to the shopping center for the first time since the shooting that left 5 people dead.
I am so lucky. I am so lucky.
Terry Engberg and her grandson came by to leave these red roses at the memorial just outside the mall. She says she was at the shopping center Friday night right before the shooting, and she stopped by to say hello to her friend Shayla Martin, one of the victims who died. Martin was working behind the Clinique counter at Macy's.
She said, everything's going great. I'm getting married.
The other victims included 61-year-old Chuck Egan, who died trying to protect his wife, mother and daughter Beatrice Dotson and Belinda Goldie, along with 16-year-old Sadai Lara. Back at the memorial at Cascade Mall, a young man in a security uniform stopped by to pray. He says he works at another shopping center, but was asked to come help work here this week.
It's basically to help people, and this is what I want to do.
Even with the mall reopened, Macy's remains closed for now as the investigation into this shooting continues.
Or you think it can't happen in your little town? It can happen in any town.
I asked Engberg if she has fears of coming back here. She says no.
Crazy will win if I don't come back to this mall. So I will come back.
I talked to Burlington Mayor Steve Sexton this morning as well. He's going to be at the vigil tonight at the mall's parking lot. He said the community needs to come together. They're standing strong even though they're grieving. Reporting in Burlington, Patrania Punswan, Cairo 7 News.
Tips poured into the police on Friday night as authorities all over the North Sound searched for the shooter. Many called in saying they recognized the man in the surveillance photos released by police, including the man Cairo 7's Joanna Small spoke to this afternoon. Joanna.
Steve, Mike Wilson thought he immediately recognized a man he'd seen working out at NAS Whidbey's base gym. However, that was just based on the first blurry photo that was released. It was really those additional pictures that came out later Friday night that had him truly convinced. Now, although at the time Wilson did not know the man's name, he knew his gait. Wilson said when he saw the pictures of Arjan Sitan mid-stride, he decided he needed to do something. He double-checked with a friend at the gym.
Like, is it him? And he was like, man, I think it is. And I was like, okay, I just want to make sure I'm not being paranoid or crazy.
Wilson called Homeland Security. It turns out that Satine is a dependent of a Navy veteran, his stepfather. That is why he uses the base facilities. He also worked briefly as a bagger at the base commissary while he was in high school. Now, we did ask a Navy spokesperson about Satine's employment history at the base. He said because he was a bagger, he never made an hourly wage. They're not actually employees. Instead, those people are allowed to work for tips. Live in Oak Harbor, Joanna Small, Cairo 7 News.
Back here outside Cascade Mall and just beyond our camera position here is Burlington Boulevard. Tonight's candlelight vigil to honor the victims and their families is being called Light Up the Boulevard. We will be here tonight to show you the outpouring of support from this community. Full coverage tonight on Cairo 7 at 11 and anytime on Cairo7.com. You can also find expanded coverage online of the investigation and a timeline of the events in this ongoing case. That and much more from our digital team at Cairo7.com. But for now, let's go back to Monique Minglaven and Cale Raymaker in the Cairo 7 studios.
Steve, thank you.